Today, we're interviewing Zach. Zach grew up in New York until 2016. He joined the military. They brought him up to Alaska, and he was in the Air Force.
Yes, sir.
All right. He's in the Air Force from 2017 until 2022. But in 2019, he took an interest in diesel and kind of had since right out of high school, and had joined a local diesel repair shop, a new one, a startup. And by 2020, had a interaction with the EPA. Their shop was raided, and we're going to tell that story. We're going to talk, get to ask him questions about, what that experience was like, what the end result of it was. And I think that this is a good opportunity to dig into what's happening in the diesel industry at the extremes. We are all pretty aware of the EPA's, interaction and involvement with us, and many other repair shops and manufacturing. And I think this is a good chance to have a conversation with somebody that was on the bad end of it and ended up working with us, and we're thankful to have him here. But hey, Zach.
How's it going? So, 2016, joined the military, went through basic boot camp. They stationed me up in Alaska, lived up here for a couple of years, and then was doing some online stuff for the company that I joined.
Online meaning like selling parts?
Just adding products to the website, trying to grow the website. Originally at the time was trying to stay at home. Didn't want to work two jobs and all the hours I was working, so I was like, this will be easy fit. Ended up starting to come in the shop more. Took an interest in that. The shop looked like, could use some more help, some more hands on deck, and then just kind of dove head first. Like, really enjoyed doing it. And I originally got into diesels because my dad had a landscaping business. He always ran diesels and got interested in that. And then, kind of like everybody, you get the bug and start tweaking stuff and making some power and blowing smoke, and it's fun.
So while you were in the military, you were working, adding parts online for the local diesel shop, took an interest in diesels, started working in the shop and repairing them. Was there a heavy focus on performance or maintenance, or?
There was a minor focus on maintenance, but was mainly on, to be honest, doing deletes and then adding power. That's what a lot of our clientele ended up being. So we just, everybody wanted to go fast. So.
And so it was both local work, a lot of deleting trucks, making power, but also selling the delete kits and tuning and parts and stuff online.
Correct. Yeah. Back then we were trying to grow online section. It was decently sized, but I'd say a lot more of our customers ended up being in the local area. Yeah.
So I guess a good place to start, because I want to focus on what it looks like in the extremes. End of 2020, around September, I believe it was.
It was.
You guys show up to work for just...
Well, it's actually funny because I was, working in the military full time. So my business partners called me and had informed me we just had been raided, and there's a bunch of local officers, and I was like, we always joked around, so I was like, cool, good one, real funny, and I hung up.
Yeah.
And they called me back, like, no, like, we're serious, like, we're actively being raided, like, and I was like, for what? I mean, you've heard about it in 2020, but it was getting big back then. Like, it was still small in my opinion. Like, they weren't hitting everybody that hard. So I was like, it's Alaska. We don't have like any federal emissions and anything. Well, there is federal, but like there wasn't any inspection or nobody enforced anything up here. So I was just like kind of dumbfounded at the time. And he's like, no, we're like actively getting raided. So at the time I had to talk to my work supervisor at the military and tell him business is getting raided. You need to go down there and handle that. I was trying to get out of work, and then I get a phone call an hour later, and like, yeah, if you don't get down here in a half an hour, they're drilling your box open, and they're going to go through it. They're not waiting any longer. And that was the beginning of the EPA raid that I got told about.
So just out of my curiosity, if you're in the military and you tell your superiors, like, hey, I need to get out of here because the feds are raiding my shop, I guess it probably just depends on who the leadership is, but how does that conversation go?
I'll be honest with you, they're kind of used to all my extravagant things, so they're just like, whatever, at this point, go handle it. And they were just, like, let us know what's going on, after that, like if you get arrested or anything crazy. And I was like, no, it shouldn't be a big deal, and it definitely turned into a big deal.
Yeah. So, all right, so you get the call, you show up at the shop. I guess one thing to be clear, they were your business partners, so you started out just working with them, and then you joined as a partner at some point in the company?
I did. Long story short, I started out just making some money for cash on the side, and then took a real interest in the company. And both my parents had owned small businesses, and I've always had that need and want to fill. So I saw an opportunity. I was like, hey, let me work myself onto the company. Should kind of show my worth and kind of build into a partnership with you guys. And both of them agreed to it, and it was in the works at the time. So yeah. I wouldn't say I was a full third owner, but it was in the works.
Okay. So show up at the shop, and there's local police and federal agents there also?
So when I had finally gotten there, the local agents escorted the federal agents there. About that time, the local agents had all gone, but there were probably about 7 to 10 federal cop cars. I mean, obviously they're unmarked. I think there were 3 officers total in state, and the rest were out of state that had gotten flown in specifically for this raid.
Okay. Now, I know there's some local presence for the EPA, probably in every state, but did you interact more with the local agents or the ones that flew up from out of state? It
was a mix. The head investigator was obviously a local guy, so he did a lot of the interviewing. He interviewed all 3 of the business partners. He interviewed me. I talked to him a brief amount. He interviewed my partner Patrick for a decent amount of time, and then if I remember correctly, I believe when he went to interview Mike, Mike didn't talk to him much.
So a lot of these cases I see where guys the owners' homes will get raided and their shops will get raided. All of this happened at the shop, and that was the only interaction? Yeah,
that was kind of weird to me. They didn't try to go to any of our houses. On the flip side, though, we didn't operate the business at all out of any of our personal homes. So I don't know if in these other cases, if they're doing, because they had been watching us for at least a year to 2 years prior to this by certain vehicles they're talking about, that hadn't been in our shop in months. They were 100% had their eye on us for a while. So I don't know if maybe they watch other business owners and if they do work out of their house, but I know for a fact we strictly worked out of our shop, so that might have been, I would assume, a reason they didn't end up going to any of our houses.
What does that mean that they watched? From whatever they told you, what does it mean they watched you for a couple of years?
So I'll be honest. Obviously, the case is closed now. We had a ProMaster. We deleted with someone in Canada. I believe it was a ProMaster. And the ECU had to be sent out to Canada to get flashed and then sent back to us. And they had all the history on that ECU going out, coming back. They had the vehicle, what it was for, everything. And that hadn't been at our shop in months. So the only way I think they would have ever gotten that information is obviously somehow, I don't know how they would have gotten the information, but somehow they got it. And they knew that we sent the ECU out. They knew the company we tuned it with. They knew when it came back, the whole 9 yards.
Was it like a sting or something? It was a plan? It was their vehicle that you deleted for them?
I don't think so, because the business was for a trucking company up here.
Gotcha.
So I don't think it was an operation personally.
Okay. So what all happens when they're at the shop? Are they going through tools invoices?
They're
they take your phones.
They hook up. Well, I know Patrick resisted one of them. It was either the computer or the phone, and didn't let him do it. I think at some point they finally got to it, but at the time they didn't. But basically, they wanted all of our phones, all of our personal computers, all of our work computers. They wanted to hook up to them, take all the information, download them, do whatever they're going to do with it. Then they basically walked around the lot, would look underneath that trucks. If they knew they were deleted and they could see straight pipes on them, they had some kind of calibration guy there that would hook a machine up to it and take the emissions output and basically see, basically get hard on fact that it was deleted so they could use it, obviously, on the case against us.
So they were taking sample data from the exhaust, or they were just taking like ECU data?
From the exhaust. They actually had a machine hooked up to the exhaust, running the truck and getting the exhaust sample. So doing that, scrubbing through everybody's toolboxes, we had some shop inventory, scrubbing through that, see if we had any delete kits on the shelf, and then interviewed all the techs. And I believe they did interview a customer too that had come by that day. Like that was, we were supposed to be open, and obviously we weren't. So,
okay, so people that stopped by while you were being raided, they interviewed them to talk about what the work was, or
briefly, yeah, they would not in depth, but they definitely did talk to them for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So they go through your tools, they go through your invoices, they copy all your computers and phones, and then do they confiscate anything? Like if you have delete parts, do they take them?
Yeah, they took the delete parts. There's a company, I'm sure a lot of people listening to the podcast know, a company called EasyLink that sells basically it's a diagnostic device that you can use to tune your vehicle. Well, we had ordered a box of them, which is 12, at $400 some a piece, so you can put the math together on that one. And they deemed all the EasyLinks as delete devices, even though they were not used for anything. They were unopened boxes that we were going to sell, and they took the box. So anything that they deemed was a delete part, they were taking, whether or not it was a delete part or like a actual factual just delete part, or whether it was even a scanner. They took it all. They even took our scanner for a couple of days until they gave it back to us.
Okay. Yeah, I had heard stories of other guys when they'll take your Snap-on scanners and stuff like that, and then keep the SD cards, which is your license and stuff. Did you have an issue with that, or did you get everything back?
We got everything back. I do know of a shop, another shop up here that got hit recently, and they took that scanner for at least a week or two. Yeah. So now you're, you have a shop which you need data and be able to diagnose trucks properly, and now you're waiting for days to get your device back to, stay in business.
Yeah. So what is it? What happened after that? So everybody leaves. They copy everything they copy. They get invoices and tools and all that. You just get a business card and say we'll be in touch? What happens?
Pretty much what they did. They pretty much they were there until about 5-6 o'clock. They got all the information they wanted, packed everything up that they wanted. Basically, handed a business card and was like, we'll be in touch in the next couple of days. And we'll let you know, how everything proceeds from there. I believe there was talk originally, again, this is a while ago, but they were going to shut us down the next day to get more data, but they had gotten everything they wanted, and we were able to open up the following day. I didn't handle this part of it. My two other business partners did, but I know they spent about a week and a half after that. They wanted, they said, hey, we need all this information, and basically you need to comply and get it to us. And it was they want all these invoices printed out, all these bank statements. They want all this information. It was pretty much, you can figure out how you're getting it to us, but we need it in this amount of time. And so I know they spent about a full week, a business week, working on getting it all wrapped up for them.
Yeah. Was there? Do they advise you to get lawyers before talking to them, or afterwards? They just say we'll let you know what's going to happen next.
They give you the spiel. You
get your Miranda rights.
Right, pretty much.
without the arrest.
Without being arrested. So you pretty much get that, and that they talk to you, and that's pretty much it. They don't really offer you any assistance aside from that. It wasn't until I'd say we had our first court date in sight that we were offered a public assistance judge if we needed to do that. And at first we were told we could have the same judge represent all of us, and then they ended up, instead of pursuing the company, they ended up pursuing us all individually. So then we all had to get a separate lawyer.
Yeah. So I guess that's the difference between a lot of what the cases you see when you get a lot of companies. You'll see they have fines that they end up paying versus felonies or jail time or any of that as a civil versus a criminal case. So in this case for you guys, it was a criminal case, meaning that you were being individually investigated, not just the business.
Correct.
Yeah. So how long was it before you had more interaction that,
It was kind of, I don't know if upsetting is the right word to use, but it was almost disheartening the way that it went about, because it was like you'd hear from them in like a month or two. You'd be back and forth contact for a week or two, and they'd be dead for like, you're talking like 4 to 6 months, like long enough where I kind of forgot he was even going on. And then all of a sudden, come back again, need more information, another court date or another meeting, and then it would go dead again.
I can imagine that a lot of that time is like highly stressful, not knowing what's going on.
You have no idea. Like they're one moment you're talking to them and they're talking about, you're getting hit with all these accounts and, you're going to jail for 10 years. And then next time you meet with them, they're like, oh, we're going to offer you this deal. And it's just like very back and forth, extreme gray area. And speaking of gray areas, while we were being raided in 2019, my personal truck was there at the time. I had a 2018 Cummins that I had emissions and tack tuning on. And while, the investigators that are supposed to be enforcing these laws and everything, I asked them, that truck is completely emissions tacked. I have tuning on it that, does add horsepower and alters timing and everything. Is that legal? And I got told by all of them, like, they don't know. Yeah. So I think it's ironic that they're there, trying to uphold an end of a law, but not knowing fully what's legal and what's not legal.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of confusion about what is going to be legal, especially going forward, and not only what's legal, but how it's going to be enforced on. Most of the regulation kind of leaves everything up to interpretation. Mm-hmm. At least most of what the performance industry has is sort of up for interpretation. So after, I guess the next thing is you get up to where you have charges. Is that the next thing? Like the next significant event was?
Yeah, because that went on for about 2 years. And then finally, about a month before we had the actual court case, like they're like, hey, this is your plea deal that we're offering you. If we sign this, then, we go to court. The judge has to sign off on everything. And that's pretty much, that's the end finally. Briefly before that, there was the wire. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not.
Probably not.
All right.
We'll keep a couple things.
Leave that out of it. So there was that part. But no, right before that, I went in there. They offered the plea deal. But the plea deal was misleading, in my opinion, too, because there was no real, like, hey, this is the deal we're offering you. It seemed like very much up to interpretation of the judge, where I could get, 2 years of jail time or I could get no jail time depending on how she saw the case going. So there was a plea deal for cooperation, but to me it was like a very like gray area of like, you might get this, you might get that, but there's no exact black and white of what you're actually going to get until you go before the judge and she tells you.
At some point, like you knew that you were getting charged with something, and mm-hmm. most likely you knew that you were going to be getting at least a felony count and possibly jail time and also a fine.
Right.
So for 6 months, 8 months, like how long did you know that some of those were going to be true?
I'd say about 6 to 8 months. I knew that was the rough guidelines of the deal. I didn't it wasn't locked in, it wasn't signed, but that was roughly what they were offering me. I was about 6 to 8 months out before the actual court case finally came.
Yeah. Did you have? I assume you did not go with a public defender. You went with a private attorney.
I hired someone private. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so at the end of it, I guess business-wise, how long did the business continue before that shut down? Like, what ended up happening with the business?
I want to say it was that fall. I'd say probably by February, we had ended up closing the business. I'm not going to say it was just due to EPA reasons. There was a lot of underlying reasons that the business ended up getting closed, but the EPA obviously didn't help with anything.
Yeah. And that, I don't know how far you want to get into it, but after that happened, the business closes, there was a lot of not great circumstances around it.
No.
You're left with, a lot of, customers' vehicles and parts and stuff like that. What ends up happening with that?
So in about February, we ended up shutting the doors for everybody.
So this is 4 months after being raided.
September, yeah, 4 months. End of February, we did that. Pretty much, there was 10 to 15 shop customers that trucks were completely torn apart. And there was like no means to an end of continuing to try to even finish them up at the shop. So I spent about 2 weeks closing down the shop. I had a couple of buddies help me, moved most of the shop vehicles and everything to my house, just so I could button them up the best I can to not kind of leave people with vehicles and 1,000,001 parts, to the best of my ability. Closed that down. All online customers, basically called them up, told them just to basically dispute any charges for any open orders you had. And that's, there's only so much you can do. You can't save everybody from a situation like this.
Yeah. But you pretty much took over like everything after that, right? Like
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so deal with that and the EPA and still trying to work a normal military job. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were full-time in the military until 22, so last year?
Yeah, I was until I got out in February of 22.
Yeah. So what ended up happening with your court case? You ended up with fines and at least one felony count, right?
Yep. So they ended up getting, I think, we're still waiting on Patrick, but Mike and I got both conspiracy to basically conspiracy to alter emissions federally. So we got a felony on that. I got 180 hours of community service and then a $66,000 fine. And then obviously I have a probation. I'm on probation for 5 years. The only difference between me and Mike is he ended up getting house arrest for 6 months, which not too sure why that got added and not for me.
So all of you, as far as you know, you got community service, 5 years of probation, and around $60,000 in fines, and that's just personal fines.
That's personal fines. I basically have some math equation that they came up with. That they basically take the amount of money they think you made and multiply it by like 2 or 3, and that's your fine. And then because there's 3 of us, they split it in thirds. And that somehow logically makes sense for a fine on that.
So when the business closed down in the meantime, was all of the charges, it was all just on you personally, and there was no like corporate fines or business fines or anything?
Yeah, nothing like that. Yeah. We had obviously outstanding business debts and stuff like that, but nothing as far as EPA goes.
So what does it mean? I mean, the thing that's, I know we can look at it objectively. We can look at it legally and say like, well, of course, you break the law, you do a bad thing, you get in trouble for it. And I think what a lot of the confusion and maybe even some variants of what people believe in the diesel community is that, you'll see people that'll be like, oh, this is crazy. They'll say F the EPA. Other people say that. It's not me saying that. It's a little bit hard socially, I can imagine, to walk around with a felony knowing that it was for, modifying cars.
Yeah,
what people are asking for, like, to buy, right?
Yeah. I've had a couple people, I go through life now, and sometimes it comes up.
Yeah.
And they're just mind-boggled that that's the fact of the matter. Again, I'm not going to sit here and be like, we weren't doing illegal things. Like, 100%, it was wrong. Shouldn't have been doing it. Yeah. But I also think there's a lot of gray area with the actual law as far as the emission system goes. That isn't fair in the way it's basically getting enforced. I know for a fact on numerous accounts from numerous people I've tried to get in contact with the EPA office and can't even get a call back to try to, be able to be within the means of the law. So,
yeah. Well, we've contacted the EPA on multiple occasions, asking, when it comes to trucks in our shop, if somebody comes in and they've got I'm going to botch this. Say we need to replace like a exhaust manifold on a Cummins,
right,
that has been deleted.
Right.
Like, are we able to replace the manifold and just put the same block off plate back on it, even though we didn't delete it? It came in the way it was. We replaced the OEM part. Is that legal? And I know for us, we can't get an answer. We can't get a clear answer on what's going to be allowed and not. And so, it's been a pretty significant shift in our business and what we're allowed to do because
absolutely
we're not. And so everyone knows, Zach works with us now. He's a good mechanic. It's not easy to make decisions in business when you're like, well, I can't touch your truck that was deleted because I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for it, and there is no way to get a clear answer on how to solve it. And it's also not, it's not great to be able to tell people, you spent $1,200 to avoid a $12,000 problem.
Yep.
And now if you want any sort of maintenance or repair, which is it's going to be the case for way more shops going forward, that you're not going to be able to repair trucks that have been deleted, even if it's not to do with the emissions components.
Right.
It's going to be a big problem for people that spend a lot of money, spend a little bit of money to avoid spending a lot of money in downtime. And I guess I'm sort of curious, like from your perspective, do you see that this is like, are you still interested in performance, in racing specifically, like legal racing, or is this pretty much taking the wind out of your sails just for the enthusiast side too?
I'll be honest, it definitely took wind out of my sails for a while. I'm slowly getting back up, mentally, let's say where I used to be.
Yeah.
It definitely is a lot to deal with, like at this age. Not anybody's fault at all, but also across the country for my family, so it's tough to go through alone. But I'm still interested in performance. It gets frustrating because there isn't clear guidance on everything. So you either just go to the extreme left and can't do anything with deletes or anything, and can't touch them, or you find this gray area. But at the end of the day, who knows if they're gonna say, "Oh, well, you're still in the wrong," without providing clear information about it. So it's frustrating.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious how this big push over the last few years is going to drive, if it's going to drive people out of performance and automotive and into power sports instead, or sanctioned racing with race cars, or if the people that are interested in automotive are just generally no, that's its own thing, and power sports is something completely different. I know for me, I don't care that much about power sports. It doesn't matter a whole lot.
You don't get full of mud?
What's that?
You don't get full of mud and dirt?
No, not really. That's all I did as a teenager, but not anymore.
I've read, obviously these are my opinions on everything going on, but I read something a couple weeks ago. Corey Willis had put out the information. I kind of thought it was decent information, but basically saying that the EPA, the way they've gone about things, have driven the delete market into a very black market, and everything's still out there, and it just is working a complete workaround way of doing everything. And the tunes out now for deletes are extremely dirty and aren't running properly, and are putting even more pollutants out than was the original issue from the get-go. I think there's a lot of better ways to go about enforcing this than they've gone about personally.
Yeah, you can't. You're not going to be able to affect what happens in other countries. And, the thing about criminals is criminals, they always like finding ways around the law.
Yeah.
I know for me, my Facebook is nothing but ads for, other countries, not in America,
yeah.
Selling delete parts and tuning.
Yep.
It's wild how many there are.
That's still out here. I feel like I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Every time you go on somewhere, you see another ad for somebody else still deleting things, and it's just it doesn't seem like it's gotten any smaller. It's just there's been more back doors opened up to doing it, and then taking money and revenue out of the actual shops that should be performing a lot of these, repairs or however you want to go about with it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I hope a couple things. One, it brings some awareness. I know that, I've had lots of discussions with like other shop owners that maybe don't care so much. And you can tell them the stories. You can tell them like this is the precedent that's being set. This is what's happening. It's actually happening everywhere. And they don't listen. And it's like, man, you got to understand that like what you're doing, if you're still selling delete parts and like you think it's what people are asking for, you think that if what people are asking for, it's what's good for them in the long run.
Nobody thinks it's going to happen to them until it happens. And that's like everybody I've talked to is the same way. They're like, won't get touched. And then next thing you know, they're getting a knock on their door and have to answer all this. So.
Yeah. And it isn't, at the end of the day, like the way things are going, it's not good for you or your customers if you're a shop owner to delete trucks just for them to turn around and not be able to repair them anymore, and nobody wants to end up with a felony in community service and house arrest and all the other things that are actually happening.
Definitely not fun. No, not at all. The biggest thing is everybody to band together, and I'm not saying that we're going to fight them and get rid of the EPA completely, but at least have a set of standards that we can follow instead of kind of let them run around and do whatever they deem necessary. But that's going to take everybody in the community coming together, and not worrying about it because it's not them at that time.
Yeah, and I'd say the best chance for that is going to be to follow SEMA, just SEMA. They're going to probably be the best resource for litigation and fighting against mandates and that are probably unreasonable, and opening up a place for discussion for what the future looks like in automotive. But thank you, Zach.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you talking about it.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Maybe we'll have you back on again sometime to talk other things.
Fun things.
Fun things.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.